Welcome to the Orange County Atheist Show. My name is Bruce Gleason, and this is Stuart Beckman. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We hope you enjoy a very lively conversation of what atheists are all about. I'm sure you will be tempted to think about your own ideas of religion and what the world really means to you while we progress through each show.
This show is not to convert anyone to atheism, but to discuss what atheism is for those who have unanswered questions about their religion and those who are agnostic.
If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to email us at ocatheist@backyardskeptics.com, and we also have a phone answering service at 714-998-8682.
We also support our friends at atheistunited.org, Orange County Atheists, and all the meetup groups on meetup.com.
There are many atheist and skeptic groups all around the country. Just Google atheist in your county, city, and you can find out how you can get in touch with other groups in your area, or you can also just look up meetup.com, type in the word atheist, and you'll find all the atheist groups that are in your area.
Now this show today is going to be about the history of atheism from the founding of the country and the golden age of free thought.
And that's a lot to talk about, so I'd like to get it started with our founding fathers.
Yes.
A lot of people say it's a Christian nation. I think it's actually a constitutional nation because our founding fathers, even though they were deists, and the definition of a deist is they believed in a God, they believed in a natural God, the scientific God, Spinoza's God. If you look up Spinoza's God, he's from I think from the 3rd century, and he envisioned a God that created the universe.
A prime mover.
A prime mover, correct, but it has nothing to do with humankind right now. He's basically kicking himself back, and he's looking at the entire universe.
That's right.
Seeing how it's going to turn out. Is that right?
Now, yeah, so our founding fathers did still have religious beliefs that there was some sort of supreme being in the universe that kind of started it all in motion like a clock. But they rejected any sort of revelation written down or given to somebody that was written down in a book. So the Quran, the Bible, the Jewish writings, they rejected all that and said that the divine being that had created the universe is seen only through nature. Nature's God.
Almost like Einstein several hundred years later.
Very
correct?
much like that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, they didn't go to church, I understand. Is that correct? The founding fathers?
Well, actually, you can say that there are some stories that when we wrote the myth of our founding of our country, George Washington was the largest of the myths. And there was actually a Christian apologist who took a lot of things he'd heard or wanted to believe about George Washington and wrote a story about George Washington that described him as quite the Christian, that he was a regular, devout person, prayed on the at Valley Forge. You've
Like
seen paintings of that. It was a biography, but it was a bogus biography that he just made up. So the story about the cherry tree, I'm sure you've heard about that one. That's out of that fake biography.
Being a skeptic, I'm kind of, right off the bat,
But it was the standing story for George Washington for almost 100 years before philologists started going back and finding out.
So it's well known now that that was all made up.
It is if you look for it, but of course Christians like to hold on to it and say no. This, they don't look to make sure things are true. They just anything that once was claimed to be true that works for their worldview, they just hold on to it.
Let's talk about Thomas Paine because he's not officially a founding father. He never was in Congress, and even though he wrote several books that started the revolution.
And kept it going at the lowest point,
that's right.
too.
And of course, when he came out with his Age of Reason book, he became very unpopular and was basically written out of history.
That's true. Although he was such a major part of the American Revolution.
Well, tell me what he did. What does Thomas Paine did? Because he was probably the most atheistic of all of our founding fathers, wasn't he?
I would say so, because the Age of Reason really was a definitive work that he wrote while trapped in prison in France during the French Revolution there. This is where he wrote down his ideas of why Christian revealed religion, Jewish revealed religion, Mohammedan revealed religion really didn't make any sense. And he was an amazing person with a gift of gab, gift of talk, gift of writing. The pamphlets he wrote are what many historians say, really launched the American Revolution. And even though the battles between George Washington and the British, we kept losing. There was no money, there was no food, down to being trapped at Christmas Day at Valley Forge with no food, no shoes, everyone freezing. George Washington kept the troops going by reading one of Tom Paine's pamphlets.
Really?
This was the Winter Soldier pamphlet that you may have heard of. So he may not have been he actually did serve in the militia for some time, didn't see any battles. But even though he didn't serve in Congress, he wasn't part of the Continental Congress, he had a major, major impact on the founding of this country. And he was very, I guess you could say, anti-religious, because he just felt like there was so much silliness around so much religion, especially Christianity, that he thought that was the next development. He thought moving to an American republic was a political development, and he saw moving into why he called it the Age of Reason, the next development from religion.
Well, that actually was, because America, of course, when it was founded, was one of the few democracies that were founded basically on a separation of church and state.
It was the first one to be founded on that.
Okay.
That was what made our Constitution the most unique document in the history of the world. No government before that, you can go all the way back to Babylonia, no government before that declared a separation between church and state. In fact, every other government before that declared that their legitimacy was derived from God. I mean, that's common standing for any government, no matter who is in power.
Yes, for at least 1,000 years before that.
At least 1,000 years. So we were breaking new ground when we had a constitution that was totally and entirely secular.
Well, I understand also that when they were arguing about the Constitution, and they took months, if not years, to argue about the Constitution, how it was going to be put together, that they never prayed when they came to an impasse.
You know, Ben Franklin, who was like 90 years old at that point, late in his life, he'd gone through the Revolution, we had won, we had developed a new country, we had worked under the Arctic Confederation, and now we were setting up a new constitution to help bring our 13 states together into a more unified federation, actually became more religious. And he constantly, not constantly, he frequently during the Constitutional Convention suggested that maybe we should have a prayer at this point. And you're right, for every time he suggested it, it was always set aside, saying we're too busy, it's not relevant, we need to get this work done.
Almost like it is today. Well, actually, more so than it is today, because there's God so much in government today.
We do have so much in government today.
Right.
In places
What do you think the Founding Fathers would do if they saw what the Christians did to the government today? Have done?
I think they would be appalled. I think Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, the two key people who created the First Amendment in our Constitution and developed that from the Freedom of Religion Clause in the state of Virginia. Well, in fact, even Thomas Jefferson had an opportunity as President of the United States to declare a religious holiday, Thanksgiving, and to he was asked about chaplains in Congress. Should we have them? Should we hire them? And he was very clear. He said, no, they don't have a place in it. It's a private matter. We need to honor that one's religion is a private faith and don't get government involved in it. And I think they were very prescient in that.
Well, I have a personal involvement in this because my local city of Villa Park is putting the In God We Trust plaque on the wall, and I know that some Christians don't mind that because, of course, they do believe in God. But what it really should say is, in God, most of us trust, because most of us do trust in God in Villa Park. But I digress a little bit. Jefferson and Madison were clearly adamant about keeping church and state, and don't you think they took a lot of Paine's writings in force with what they believed in and presented that to other people in the Congress? Meaning that Thomas Paine was really the instigator, or was it everybody working on their own and coming to the same conclusion?
Well, our Founding Fathers came out of the European Enlightenment, where science was coming to the forefront and religion was kind of stepping back a bit. We had Galileo coming forth, saying that we didn't have an Earth-centered universe. It's our solar system is around the sun. Having the telescope.